Hi everyone, I'm Nick and I'm going to make some videos on lockpicking, specifically from the perspective of a beginner. Since I've been lockpicking for about 1 month, I thought I'd make some videos on how to start or how I started and how to progress. I'll also be talking about some of the pitfalls, some of the mistakes I've made, and some of the things that have helped me most. Now, I started making my own lockpicks since I had read on the forums and watched some videos that it's actually quite simple, and I had a hacksaw lying around and I quite enjoy making stuff myself. So what I did was I got the hacksaw blade, printed out a template, and used a grindstone to make some basic hooks. Here's one of the hooks I made. This one's actually a very effective design. This one worked well for me. I put the tape around it because, typical beginner's mistake, I was using way too much force and pressure and it was causing quite some discomfort on my fingers. So for the first few hours that I was lockpicking, since you don't get very far in the first few days, I was using them quite a lot and I was digging into my fingers, put some electrical tape around them. Since then I've kind of used it as a standard just to be able to see the differences between the ones that I bought and the ones that I made. I made a few hooks in the beginning, different sizes, different shapes, different thicknesses, and found out that this was actually the only one that really worked for me. The other ones I made were mostly too skinny. That resulted even with my cack-handed and way too much use of force in a broken lockpick inside this lock, rendering it completely useless from now on. I've tried to retrieve the piece of metal that's stuck in there, but it is actually lodged way in the back and is blocking the last pin from moving. So, beginner mistake, learn from it, don't force it. If it's not going, it's not going, then don't start using more force just to get it to budge. I made a tension wrench out of a windscreen wiper. I made several tension wrenches, they were all fine, they work the way they should. I put a twist in this one to kind of dissipate that power that I was putting in there. Now I would not really deem it necessary. I prefer to use these ones at the moment since they just give me a little bit more control. Yeah, it's fine to have, really not much to spend much time on. It's a bent piece of metal, so to speak. After a while I decided to buy a set. I did some research and found out that there are different keyways in different parts of the world. The sets are easiest to come by in the States, or at least the North Americas, and I had to find one there that would actually suit me here in Europe. I found the Sparrow's Spirit set to have a shallow Euro hook as well as a standard short hook and a steep hook, and it also has a high reach hook which I have not need to use yet. But the fact that it had these measurements that were also suitable for European locks made it quite attractive to me. So I ended up buying that set. It comes with a bag, little canvas case, which is okay. Comes with these picks. They're not very flashy, but they do the job, and they're actually very nice quality as far as I can tell. I haven't had any of them bend or budge on me, and they're nicely rounded, no sharp edges. Comes with 6 tension wrenches. Comes with these ones, top of the keyway, bottom of the keyway, different thicknesses, and these ones with the twist in the top. Pretty much before I even got these home, I had already ordered another load. I ordered these pry bars, or these tension wrenches here, since I saw a lot of people using them on YouTube, and these were some things that I couldn't actually make myself. So for the cost, I decided to just try them out, have them sent, and see how they work for me. One of the more unique parts of my situation is that I'm left-handed. So when I hold a lock, you see a lot of the guys who are right-handed on YouTube holding their locks like this, which is quite difficult for me, and then pressing or applying tension with their finger, with their index finger. It seems to be quite a good way of doing it, but when you're left-handed you don't really have that option. So I use my thumb, and I find my thumb works very nicely here with these tension wrenches, but as soon as I use these, it becomes a little less comfortable. Now I'm using bottom of the keyway here just as an example, but these are mostly made for top of the keyway, like so. And then it's a kind of a strange angle to get to the pins. Now I'm trying different grips and different ways of holding it, so maybe if I find something that works for me I'll switch, but for now I'm quite happy just using these tension wrenches. I've noticed that I've been using the hook which most similar to the one that I'd made myself. Basically a medium hook here. I believe that Sparrows call it the standard short hook. It works well for me, I like it. I've also used the very shallow one a few times, and I haven't need to use the deep ones yet. Raking is something I want to try a bit later. First I want to get the single pin picking down, which of course is a utopia, but I want to feel what the lock is doing and get a feel for the pins and basically learn it the hard way before I start trying to get my speed and my efficiency up. Alright, we're back. I've changed the camera angle so hopefully you can see slightly better what's going on when we start picking. We're going to be picking these 4 locks. The 5th lock over here is an Avis 6530, very much like this one. The only difference with this one is it has the built-in extra of a broken off lockpick inside. The very first day I started lockpicking, I built my own pick, and it was a very thin, narrow hook, and I was using way too much pressure, and it broke off inside. So we're going to be putting that to one side until I can retrieve the broken piece of metal. We're not going to be doing anything with that. First lock we're going to pick is this PSU M lock. The M lock I think is made by Avis. I'm not 100% certain on that. I got this lock from a colleague. It's got 3 pins in it, no security pins as far as I can tell. It's a bit of a strange lock to pick since the pins really don't give you any feedback. They're very loose, they rattle around, and by the time you get any feedback on it, the lock pops open. So I'm going to be using a Sparrow's medium hook from the Spirit set and a tension wrench from the same set. This is the narrow tension wrench with no twist in it. I'm going to be using the back of the hook first just to rake over the top of the pins, and that's normally sufficient to open this lock. As I mentioned, it has really very little reaction and very little communication, and it just pops open. So 1, not a very good lock, and 2, not a lock that you can learn much from as a lock picker. Put that to one side. This one, Avis 6530, I enjoy picking a lot. It's the first lock I actually picked after destroying its brother over here. It's a lot of fun. It has 5 pins, 4 of them are spools, I believe. Spool pins are a great way for a beginner to learn to listen to the lock, basically. It may sound a little pretentious, but you have to get a feel for it and understand what the lock's trying to do and what the pins are trying to tell you. And I really enjoy picking this one. In the beginning, it took me quite a long time to get the feeling for it, but once you get the feeling for it, you can easily step over into other locks and start feeling what's going on there as well. So again, I'm going to use the back of the hook first, and I'm going to try and get a fault set, which means I'm going to try and get the first click, and there you go. So what we now have is a fault set. The best way to measure that is I've seen someone do this. They line up their lockpick, and you can see that there's quite a big deviation from what would be the straight line. Now with security pins, anyway, you're going to have a bit of a margin there, but this is more than it was in the beginning. So now we've got this fault set, I'm going to start checking the pins one by one and seeing if there's anything that's going to give me a bit of feedback, a bit of pushback onto my thumb, which is holding the tension wrench. So pin 2 is fine, pin 3 seems okay, pin 4 is all the way up, there we go. Now pin 1 has jumped back up again, let's put him back in, and I'll start the beginning again, move forwards. Tapping every single pin individually. I'm waiting for a pin that kind of pushes back on the tension wrench. There we go, that was pin 5. Now this is quite a wide keyway, so there's a lot of room for the person picking just to kind of move about and feel about, see what's going on inside. Now, I may have overset something here. Yeah, I overset something, so let's see what we got here. Number 1's down, 2's down, 3's down, 4's not moving, 5. Okay, there we go. So, let's open. Well, I talked through the process of what I was doing, but I start with the back of the hook, get a fault set, and once I've got the fault set, I start individually going past the pins. If one pin jumps back up, not a problem, just go past the whole lot again, and eventually once they're all down, he'll pop open. I thought I overset something there, but apparently it wasn't too bad. I managed to get the last pin in. These Yale locks have been hanging in my back garden for 2 years now. As you can see, they've got quite a tarnish on top. They're full of grime and grub and algae and God knows what else is inside of these. I'd kind of forgotten I actually owned these because I don't really go into the garden much, but what I was reading about locks is that these Yales are very well known for their narrow keyways, and I have to admit it is a lot narrower than the ABUS. So for comparison's sake, it's the ABUS on the left and the Yale on the right. It's not just narrower in the width, but also the vertical length is slightly shorter on the Yale as well. Another difference is the depth of the first pin. You can see the first pin on the left is nearly almost up at the front there, so you can easily see it, and that also means that the last pin is closer to you. Now with the Yale, it already has a narrow way, and you've got to imagine that the fifth pin in this is much deeper than it would be on the ABUS. From what I've understood, I've read up on these, this is the 110-40. The 5 pins are not security pins, so this is actually quite a good step up for me, because now I've got to learn to deal with the narrow keyway without having to deal with some nasty security pins as well, so it's a good platform to start learning on again. I have opened both of these locks before, but I only found them 2 days ago, so I haven't got much time with them. I'm going to start again with the back of the lockpick, just as I did before. The false set here will not be quite as it was before, because we don't have the security pins in there, but we seem to have a bit of movement now. And now I'm just going to look for locking pins. Looks like pin 4, 5 that might be, it's quite difficult to tell. It's the one biting, there we go. Now I'm still using bottom of the keyway tension here because it allows me a lot more comfortable position in my hand with the lock. Probably eventually I will have to go over to the top of the keyway on some locks, but until that moment really comes, I will probably be using bottom of the keyway. Even with this narrow keyway, I seem to be doing alright with using the space efficiently. Now if I was going to be raking or something that requires a bit more movement and bouncing, then I would probably have to move to the top of the keyway. So that's the Yale opened. Nice little lock. Takes a bit of a different feeling than the ABUS, so all the more experience. This lock is the same as the previous one, though I can tell by this little dip of rust here that this is the more difficult of the two. It's the same model, just a different key, and this one I think has been on top of the other one when it's been hanging outside, because this one really is grimy and quite rough and seems very, how would you say it, crunchy inside. So let's see how we get along with this. Yeah, I cannot really feel, I mean the pick doesn't even slide in and out easily, so it's quite a mess in there. You can tell by the tarnish around the hole there that there's been quite a lot of liquid running in and out. Alright, there we go. It's a bit of movement. There we go, and it's open. So this one, if I remember correctly, is really quite tough to close. There we go. So that's all of these locks opened. I've been enjoying this so far. I'm hoping to get my hands on some more locks soon. I might even buy a training lock that I can pin myself. I don't have any experience with serrated pins yet, so that's hopefully the next step. And I'm just going to try and gather as many locks as I can, and I'll be sure to film them and update with anything that I learn and any new stuff that I try. So thanks for watching, and leave any comments or any questions if you have any. Thank you.